Hey, good morning, everybody. Good morning, Mortgage Coach
I'm
community.
moving.
As you can tell, I am
It
not
sure
Dave
it is.
Savage.
Good, good.
I am
That
not
way
Dave Savage.
everyone knows this isn't scripted now.
That's right. This is I'm Josh Mettle, and this is my coach, mentor, and friend, Tim Braheem. And we're going to be filling in for Dave Savage this morning as he's out doing a presentation. And we're going to be covering the top 2 skills that loan originators need to have in their 2019 business plan. We're going to kick that off with some strategy early on about deal structure, seller paid buy down, some things like that. We're going to share a TCA, and then we're going to get into building relationships. Now, let me just kick us off real quick if I can. I want to just quickly introduce myself for those of you who don't know me. For those of you who do know me, high five. How are you all? Happy holidays to you. I'm a producing branch manager in the Salt Lake City area. Been in the mortgage business for 17 years. I've served over 3,500 families in my mortgage career, and just crossed the $1 billion production line this year. So that is a goal I've had for 15 years and very proud of. I'm joined here by Tim Braheem, as I mentioned, who is my coach, mentor, $1 billion producer, and then some of his own, and just a really prolific mortgage producer in his time, and now leads the Leadership 360 family. I just spent 9 days with him down in Costa Rica, had the most life-changing coaching and life and business coaching events. And I can tell you that he is wickedly smart and in tune with our mortgage community, and expect nothing but awesomeness in the next hour from Tim. So with that, Tim, glad to have you, brother.
Thanks for having me. And I got to take a shot at Dave. He's doing a presentation right now. All right. I don't know. I think he's still in bed is what we're talking about.
It might have been a late night last night. You're just going to roll with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I had to do a presentation Saturday morning after Friday night. So.
We all did.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, it's nice to be with you. And yeah, let's rock and roll. Let's do some damage and impart hopefully some teaching here. It's fun.
Indeed. And where do you want to kick off, my friend? Do you want to kick off with strategy, or what are the topics that are hot on your mind that you want to talk about this morning?
Yeah, I think that, Dave and I in our preparation for this call talked about, really 2 things that I personally feel are critical to being in everyone's business plan in 2019. And, one of them is, really learning how to sell alternative products and how to structure deals. I'll kind of throw that into one bucket, and we can kind of talk in some depth about why. And then the second is really creating connection and cultivating more deeply rooted referral partner relationships. And we can maybe talk about that in the second half of the call. But, I think that as I've said a few times, I think I said this in the call with Daniel Harkavy on Friday, those of you that were tuned into that over the last 7 or 8 years, everyone's gotten pretty comfortable selling the same thing. And when I look back on my career, 99 being a year where things went, from really good to really tough, really fast. And the thing that I look back on and when I think to myself, well, why did I survive that like in such a graceful way compared to most that, got out of the business or just really struggled? It was because I got out of the lead boots, so to speak, of selling the same product and figured out alternative ways to tweak my presentation. Like one of the things, Josh, that I think sometimes loan originators don't really assess and analyze is, that we're constantly delivering a presentation to people. When we pick up the phone and talk to somebody for the first time, it's hopefully for every one of you that are listening an orchestrated process where you are taking people through an educational system that generates hopefully a predictable result. And sometimes the market dictates that presentation needs to change and that we need to start to maybe not sell rate. When you think about it, I mean, it's funny. I had a client who actually, and I won't mention him because I don't want to call him out, but he left me a voicemail yesterday and he was like, yeah, things are really tough right now. I mean, rates are kind of high. And I'm thinking, rates are high. I mean, You know, if you would have told me that like in 2004, even, I would have been like, what are you talking about? Rates are phenomenal right now. Even at, 5.25% or 5% or whatever, they're still great. It's just all relative and all based upon the perspective of what the audience, if you will, has become accustomed to, right? So that's shifted. So it's like you can continue to play the game of presenting rate and leading with that, or you can start to look at things like asset accumulation with the mortgage and the home purchase as the vehicle, or presenting to the client payment versus rate. So I think we could talk about some programs, but I mean, I'd actually, having gotten to know you really well and really admiring you as an originator and your presentation skills and the way you articulate yourself, maybe you could just start us off by telling us, or even showing us, if you have a TCA, what's something that you're presenting right now that might be a little bit more unique, that they being the consumer isn't seeing if they're talking to somebody like yourself that you're competing against?
Yeah, good question. And a couple of things come to mind. The first thing that comes to mind is that in 2018, it was all about inventory, right? The first 3 quarters of the year were all about inventory. And so our unique selling proposition was all about connecting them with a realtor that was networked in the local community and being able to close in 17 days and be able to call the listing agent with our local reputation and the fact we've had a credit and income underwritten file and get in front of the 15 other offers and help you get your offer accepted. And that script worked really well up until about the kids went back to school. Mm-hmm. And just to add credence to what you said about flipping the switch, we had to switch that conversation because there weren't 13 offers on a home. We started to slow down a little bit, and to the point of the gentleman who called you yesterday, rates did creep up. So how do we stay creative? How do we educate, and how do we continue to be the advisor for our clients? And I'll just that's the question that hit me, and I'll just set the stage really quickly. In our area, if you just take Salt Lake area, Salt Lake County, and you look at the increase in home prices year over year, we're up about 10%. But in addition to the increase in prices, we're up in rate 125 basis points from 3.875 to 5 1/8. So if you look at an average monthly payment differential, this is just median price. You're looking at the median increase in price year over year at about $550, payment, median increase in payment at the median home price. We're up $550 a month in payment. So that's starting to have people just pump the brakes a little bit, and they're starting to slow down. And so the solution that I help cultivate through the mortgage community, mortgage coach community, is the buy down strategy. I'm going to share with you really quickly, if I can, Tim. You see my screen, buddy?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So I've got 2 of them here teed up that I'll show you really quickly. But this is what the typical conversation that I'm having. I'm running through my normal set of questions, which is scripted, and I'm taking down the notes. And then at the end, I'm asking you about the market. I'm saying, what are you seeing out there? And this particular client said, yeah, I just went to look at a house this weekend. We're considering writing an offer. The house is listed at $1,219,000, which is strategy number 1. And we're thinking of offering $1,189,000 or $30,000 less. That's about how much room he thinks there is in that property. And I said, okay, that's a strategy, and it would save you $30,000. But what if I told you I think I could use that same money and save you almost triple in your mortgage payments over the next 10 to 15 years? And he said, hey, I'm all ears. So in this total cost analysis, what we did is in strategy 1, we left the purchase price alone. We said, hey, let's just offer full price, but let's get this seller to kick in that $30,000 towards closing costs. We're going to use that to 1, buy down your interest rate, and 2, reduce your cash to close. So his upfront cash to close went down by about $8,000. And if you look down here on the right-hand side, he saved $266 a month with the buy-down strategy. Over 10 years, he saves $53,000 plus the $8,000 cash to close up front. And over 15 years, if you subtract these 2 out, he's ahead about $79,000 plus the $8,000 he saved up front. He's ahead $86,000. So he saves almost 3 times as much as the price strategy alone. So just these conversations changing them from, by the way, this conversation started with, hey, I'm interested in a loan in such and such area. What's your rate? Mm-hmm. And I had to pivot out of that, right? Because if I just said, you know, my jumbo rate's 4.875, he's going to call 5 other people, and I guarantee you he's going to find a rate somewhere that's a little bit lower. I've got to find a way to add value and inflect strategy into the conversation that shows them we're more than just rate.
Yeah. So let me just comment on a couple of the subtleties of the brilliance of what you just presented. So first of all, do you want to comment on the tax benefit? Because you didn't touch on that. And I think it's an important point to bring up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I found that clients have an incredibly high number of questions about this when we leave the tax strategy in there, because they've all heard that there are changes in the tax code. So this is a conversation point where we'll jump on the phone with them and say, look, this may depend if you're going to itemize or if you're going to take your standard deductions. So, you know, that conversation may be different with a self-employed individual, but we're going to walk them through if they are going to take their itemized deductions and say, we've actually calculated your state and federal income tax bracket based on your income that you've given us, and this is what you can expect for a monthly tax benefit at the end of the year if you end up itemizing and using those deductions that way.
Yeah, so there is an increased tax benefit too, because obviously by using the seller's contribution to pay discount points, you get that immediate tax benefit, which is, I think, a huge sales piece, right?
Correct. That's exactly right.
So it shows that you're thinking out of the box. And one of the things that I want everybody to hear kind of loud and clear in Josh's script is something that he said about this conversation started with rate. And what I want to impart upon all of you in as resounding of a way as I can is that it is your job to take control of the conversation immediately when you first answer the phone and drive the conversation to a place of value and away from rate. Too many times I see originators kind of sitting back and allowing the consumer to drive the conversation and commoditize the conversation. And that's the critical mistake that's made. So you've heard this script a million times, I'm sure, but maybe there's one person on this call that hasn't heard it, so they'll benefit from hearing it. But I would always, at the very beginning of the conversation, say to the client, you know, there's some questions that I need to ask you before I can even assess your circumstances. Please let me take 5 minutes to just inquire about some things that are important for me to understand before I can present anything to you. So I'm letting them know right out of the bat, like, we're not going to talk about rate because I need to know, you know, what your loan amount is, what you qualify for, what your credit score is, et cetera. Once I'm done asking those critical questions, then I roll into this script. You know, I'm not a fan of throwing a bunch of rates, payments, closing costs, tax deductibility, principal prepayment strategies, things of that nature at you over the phone, because I feel that it's very confusing to the consumer. And actually it's a diagnosis of a circumstance without proper research. And what I need to do is a little bit of homework. I need to research 3 or 4 different loan structures for you, because one of the things that I'm very keen to in today's marketplace is that a lot of people are just presenting rate and they're not looking at the overall picture that involves other components that can have a great impact on the long-term value of the loan that you should be taking out. So let me do some homework, some research on your behalf. I'm going to present some numbers to you in writing, and then I'm going to go over them with you, and then you're going to have all the information that you need, and you can make an educated choice for yourself and your family based upon having all the critical information in front of you. And nobody's going to ever argue with that presentation, because that is actually what benefits the consumer more than anything. So I'm basically telling the consumer, I'm not going to give you a rate right now. To give you a rate is unprofessional, and it is. You know, if it were that simple, there wouldn't be any need for any of the people on this call. We would all just go to the internet. We would just, you know, pick a rate and apply for a loan, and it would be done. But I think we all know, because we're on this call and we're professionals and we use the tools that you know, the mortgage coach has to offer, that there are important subtleties to this decision-making process. But it's your job, as Josh is doing, to present those subtleties in a compelling way. And what he's doing by presenting these numbers in the way that he is he's showing that he's innovative, he thinks out of the box, he's strategic, he's knowledgeable. I mean, when you're done having that conversation with him, you can't help but feel like, what am I going to miss out on if I don't work with this guy or gal, depending upon who you're talking to? And that's the question that you always want people to be asking. And the only way people are going to ask themselves the question, what am I going to miss out on if I don't work with him or her, is if you teach them something. And that is fundamentally, going forward, your primary role in this business is to be an educator of financial decision-making processes as it relates to indebtedness. So the more that you take the time to dive in and and educate yourself and think of ways to present these types of scenarios, the better. Now, let me ask you a question, Josh. So like this, is this something that you just kind of thought of off the top of your head, or did you play around with the TCA and look at different iterations and go, oh, wow, this is a strategic way to present things? Walk the people through like what your thought process is in going through a transitional time and modifying your presentation. Tell us how you go about kind of thinking out of the box that way.
Yeah, good question. Well, first of all, I noticed that it's not working, right? So my old presentation isn't hitting the mark, right? I'm not squarely hitting the ball anymore with the old presentation. So you got to just realize, hey, it's time for a shift. The second part is I was plugged into the mortgage coach community, and I heard you and Dave and the other people on the mortgage coach community start talking about the buy down strategy. And I realized, this is a strategy I used 10 years ago, and we put it away in a box, and it's time to get it back out. So then you just start, building iterations of this, looking at different options. So the first thing I did is I built 3 different iterations to show my realtors. And I can show you, I'm sharing my screen still. I could show you what that might look like. I built 3 iterations for realtors to educate them. I said, hey, look, realtor partners, here's where we're at. Here's the market rate with 3% down in this scenario, and this payment is up $500 from where it was last year at this time. And I gave them some data on how I got to that. And I said, there's 2 ways that we can address this. We can use the buy down strategy, and in this case, we use $9,000 in buy down strategy to get rid of MI and reduce the rate. Or you can reduce your listings by $45,000 in price. So I just start playing around with it, building different iterations, and I immediately go to how can I coach my realtors and the other loan officers in our branch with this, and you become really fluent in how to build these for clients. And then when you have conversations, it just becomes organic.
Cool. So let me comment on that, and then answer a couple of questions in the chat box. So first of all, I want everybody to clue into something very important that he just articulated, which is he's not just presenting these new sales strategies, these new deal structures to the client. He's taking the time to go sit down with all of his realtor partners and show off his knowledge, his creativity, and the strategic approach to how to win in today's market with them. So check this out. If you were a real estate agent, would you rather do a $30,000 price reduction like every other listing agent is doing in today's market in the scenario that he just articulated and drop that thing down in the high 1.1 million range? Or would you rather keep it at the existing price and have something truly unique and special to put on the MLS, which might sound something like, on this home only, a 30-year fixed rate mortgage at 4.375% for those who qualify? Now think about that. That's a much more powerful marketing message than getting lost in the shuffle of a $30,000 price reduction, which is kind of ho-hum on a $1.2 million property. It's not sexy. It's not going to grab anybody's attention. But to go to your realtor partners and to show them that you're truly a partner and that you're going to help them use the financial component and deal structuring creativity that you have to partner with them and help them sell more property, that's a smart move. You want to comment on that in any way, Josh, before I jump into a couple of these chat questions?
Yeah, man, I'm jotting down notes. I loved that. You took it a step farther than I did. What I did do is I showed them the strategy when they're representing a buyer. Here's why this strategy has legs. But almost even more so, to your point, when you're representing a seller and you get a $30,000 low offer, you can now counter with, hey, we'll cover $10,000 in closing costs and get the payment down to the same as if we would have dropped the price $30,000, and it's a win-win for both parties. I thought that piece through, but I didn't think through the on this property only, we have approved 4.375, whatever it is, 30-year fixed financing with our preferred lender. That's a brilliant add to the MLS listing that I'm going to implement.
And use that as your in to having a conversation with a listing agent. So you're working on a deal, right? They drop the price $25,000. You enter into contract with them with your buyer, and now you've got them as a captive audience for 45 days. There's no reason why you shouldn't be picking up the phone and going, hey, I noticed that you dropped the price on this property $25,000, and I want to sit down with you for 10 minutes and share a strategy with you that I think is going to help you sell more of your listings that would have been an alternative way to go about doing this. And then you walk in with your laptop and your total cost analysis, comparing and contrasting the two different scenarios, the one that they just executed on, which was the drop in price, versus what they could have done, and ask them if they think that they'd sell more property if they could be putting on in the MLS in a creative way with a creative advertisement. I think that it's just another way to get in front of listing agents and to show that you're an out-of-the-box thinker and that you're more than just a glorified telemarketing loan officer, for lack of a better term.
No doubt, man. And can I add just one more thing to that? Let's impart some wisdom from Dr. Cialdini that talks about persuasion. And in that book, if you haven't checked it out, it's a great book, but he talks about what you can say before you get to the sale or before you really get to the point, the hook, that is going to persuade someone to be favorable to what you are saying. So what I did with my realtors is I went back and I said, look, let's agree on the problem. The problem is prices went up 10% and rates went up 1.25%. So the median home monthly payment's gone up $550 a month. And it's the payment that has caused people to balk and to slow down. Would you agree with me on that? Mm-hmm. I get the yes. And then I go into the solution. Okay, well, let me show you two ways how you reduce the payment. You can either reduce the payment through dropping the price, or you reduce the payment by the seller buy down strategy. But I think if you jump into the TCA and the strategy and try and sell them on the buy down prior to getting them persuaded that the problem is how rapidly monthly payments have gone up, I don't think you have as valuable or as good of an argument.
Got it. Well, I think that's an important point. And I'm just checking out another thing that popped up in the text in the chat box here, that the MLS does not allow you to advertise an interest rate, which is new information to me because it used to. I know back in the day when I was using some of these strategies myself back in the late 90s and early 2000s. But I do think even if you can't put a rate in there, you could put something in there that's a teaser, which is a special interest rate offered on this property only. I'm pretty sure that you can at least put that without having to actually put an interest rate in there. Ideate with your real estate partners as to what is allowed to try to create some buzz and some excitement around that property. Additionally, you could put together for your listing agents or for your real estate partners that have properties that they're listing, you could put together a flyer or something like that they have on the counter whenever anybody's showing property that shows this special price, right? And that has your name on it. So there's a lot of creative ways to go about doing that. So Josh, I'll see if you want to take Rick Costa's question. If not, I can take it, which is curious as to why the tax benefit is better in strategy number one.
Go for it.
Well, I mean, I'm presuming without diving deeply into the numbers, it's because we're paying a significant amount of discount points and we're getting the upfront write-off right out of the gate, right?
You're exactly right.
And that's going to be paired off to some extent over time by the fact that you have a lower interest rate, so a little bit less tax deductibility there's a few factors involved in this, because a higher purchase price is going to have a little bit higher property taxes associated with it. A higher interest rate is going to have a little bit more write-off, but you get a lot of bang for your buck right out of the gate by having those discount points immediately tax deductible. And that's how I would present and sell that. Is that your strategy too?
That's exactly it. And if you can make that a transition point to an introduction to the CPA, I think that's the real win-win there. You have the initial conversation. You say, these are averages based on your tax bracket. Would you like me to have a conversation with your CPA to flush this out and make sure it's accurate based on your particular situation? When we hang up, just shoot an email to me and your CPA introducing us, and I'll take it from there.
Yep, absolutely. And then you get an opportunity to show off your knowledge to a CPA, talk their language and impress them and flatter them by saying, hey, this isn't, I'm an expert in debt management. You're an expert in taxes. I'm pretty sure that I know the answer to this question, but I really want to get your wisdom. And then you're flattering them, and everybody likes to be asked for advice,
no doubt,
especially in their profession. So the first question, and I'll take a shot at this, and I'll be curious, Josh, is if you have a strategy, which is, how do you overcome shoppers taking your strategy to online provider for price?
Yeah.
Well, First of all, I mean, I think that it's all about you just adding unprecedented value in your presentation process to where, once again, they're forced to ask themselves the question, what am I going to miss out on if I don't work with him or her? My core strategy that I used over and over and over again for most of my career was to always posture and position myself as somebody who is going to manage your debt for you on an ongoing basis. In other words, what I'm saying is this, is that when you work with me, you're always going to have access to the cheapest money. So some of the processes that I would take people through are as follows. I would explain to them that the critical mistake that's often made is that people are asking themselves the question, how long am I going to be in this home for? And how long you're going to be in the home for is only a portion of the question that you need to be asking. The question you need to be asking is, how long will I likely need to borrow this money for? Because we swap money for cheaper money all the time as a result of the cyclical nature of interest rates. And that's why in a market like this, I would be breaking out historical market rate data, graph charts for the last 15 to 20 years, showing people how rates fluctuate and gyrate and go up and down. And that And teaching them that what happens is that when we start to overheat in the economy, the Fed starts to tighten their position, which they're in the middle of right now. And we don't know how many more times in 2019 they're going to tighten. There's some speculation around that, but we probably are going to have another tightening in December and at least one or two more maybe into 2019. But what will happen is this guaranteed. They will tighten until which time they slow the economy down. And when they do, and we start seeing signs of that, because the market is forward thinking by nature, then we will rally in mortgage-backed securities. And when we rally, rates will then start to come back down. Now, I don't know how much further they're going to go up before they start to come back down, but I do know this. Look at this historical data. They always go up. They always go down. We're in an upward trend right now. And at some point in time in the future, we're going to be lower than we are right now. I don't know how long out that will be, but I will tell you this, that if I'm doing my job correctly, my job really just begins when your first loan closes with me. Most people just provide the debt and walk away. I'm not going to make that mistake. It's not how I do business. It's my job from the point of closing to into the future to manage your debt for you. And what that means is to watch for opportunities for cheaper money. And when those opportunities present themselves, to proactively get you approved for new money and to contact you and make you aware of the fact that we're going to swap out this loan that we're taking out right now for something cheaper. And if the loan amount is in the $300,000 price range or more, and some of it depends upon, how your company is structured and what kind of basis points you're paid and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it varies from loan officer to loan officer in today's marketplace. But if you have the ability to do no cost refis, you've got to be selling that now. I was always letting people know that, if your loan amount's over $300,000, I know you just had a huge conforming loan limit increase up into the high 400s, which is fantastic for this strategy, that when there is an opportunity to swap out for cheaper money, it's not going to cost you anything. I'm going to use the overage money that's paid to me to pay your non-recurring closing costs, and we're going to drop your interest rate for free. Now, when you present things like that to people, it makes it a lot tougher for them to just go run and take your strategy to, Quicken.com and to talk to somebody who's clearly not as slick and sophisticated and educated in the way that they present themselves. So I think in closing that to answer Lori's question, that the frequency of you having your strategy taken and delivered to somebody else is in direct proportion with how good you are at presenting your presentation. And the better you are at presenting your presentation, the better you are at teaching, the more knowledgeable you are, the more that it's going to be difficult for somebody to just go run and do that. I rarely ever had that happen to me, to be very honest with you. But a lot of it was because I was a really good teacher. I took very seriously the importance of my craft, of honing my presentation skills and adding unprecedented value up front. And when we get into relationships and connection in just a second, I think it'll be a perfect bridge to that subject matter, because that's the other side of the coin, which is people are going to be a lot less prone to do that if you have a truly deep connection with them and you've structured your presentation in a way to cultivate that connection. But Josh, how would you answer that question? Do you have anything different than what I shared?
Well, just a takeaway from what you just said, you can tell that Tim was ready for that question. You can tell that he had a script that he's used probably thousands and thousands of times with clients. So the first answer to your question, Lori, is you want to be ready for that question and you want to have a response that adds value and makes clients feel comfortable. You're building a relationship that you're now going to manage that future indebtedness for them. And so when they get off the phone, they're a little less likely to just take your presentation and send it to 7 other places because they feel there's a connection starting to be built there. So I just want to give credit to what you just said. The next thing that I've been implementing, I mentioned to you this in Costa Rica, and I got this from you as well on a previous Mortgage Coach episode, but you talked about as soon as you have that initial phone consultation, and as soon as you are getting ready to then get working on whatever it is that you're going to be working on, or you're waiting for them to send the application back if they're doing it online, you just quickly take your phone. You've got a little tripod, which just sits right out in front of me. And I just launch that and I just say, hey, Tim, it's Josh Mettle, Fairway Independent Mortgage. Man, I just wanted to put a face with the voice. It was a pleasure chatting with you. I cannot wait to work with you and your family. I absolutely love working with first-time home buyers. This is going to be fun. Now, I just sent you the link to our client questionnaire. Take 10 minutes, complete that questionnaire. I'm going to build the total cost analysis that we talked about, and then we're going to regroup tomorrow. I'm also going to text you my contact card. Please save that to your phone, because one day after hours or one Saturday, you're going to need me, and I want you to be able to go to your phone and find my number and text me whenever you need me. Looking forward to working with you. Check your email for that client questionnaire link. And connection starts to build.
It's a lot harder to cheat on somebody that you know. It's a lot harder to cheat on somebody that you know than somebody you don't know. Right?
Totally.
So
totally.
here's the deal. Are you becoming known? Or are you just a voice on the other end of the phone that has no connection with the consumer that you just spoke to? So I'll go even. Thank you, first of all, for crediting me with that idea, which I came up with about 1.5 years ago, and for doing it, more importantly, because it's always nice to see things get fulfilled. One step further is that I would incorporate into that presentation, one of the things that I find to be really important is for me to understand what's important to you and understand the people that I'm working with. Just now I sent you a Facebook friend request. If you wouldn't mind, please go ahead and accept that. And we can friend each other. You can learn a little bit more about me and my profession and what I do and my family. And I'd like to learn a little bit more about you. And if we end up working together, I'm going to want my team to know a little bit about you too, because they're really big into serving people and they really want to have a connection with people. So you just come clean with it. You're just telling them, I just want to connect more deeply with you. It doesn't need to be some tricky conversation. It's like, I like to know the people that I'm potentially working with. Then what you do is after you send that video, you go in and you like a few of their photos. Okay. And when they see that you're liking their photos, they're going to check your photos out because the law of reciprocity kicks in. When they check well, look what the cat just drug in. Welcome to the party, Dave Savage.
Just back from the presentation.
But what we're talking about here is connection. So if we can roll there, that would be great. Dave, do you mind if I continue with Josh, or do you want to jump in here and say hello?
I think he's still getting audio set up.
Okay, got it. So connection is critical in today's market game. It's critical with your referral partners and it's critical with your clients. When you're competing against these fintech companies that are, glorified telemarketing operations in many ways, okay, the consumer's going to be dealing with people that they don't have any type of a personal connection with. Mm-hmm. And that's where you need to separate yourself from the competition and start to connect with people. Now, when we think about connection, I want to first say that connection doesn't involve strategy. You can incorporate some technical strategy into it, like Josh has just articulated with using his cell phone to record a video to somebody. But what's more important is how you make the person feel. And when you think about all of the relationships that you have in your life that are truly meaningful ones to you, you didn't impart any strategy to cultivate that relationship. So Josh, I'm going to use you as an example. So, 30 days ago, you showed up in Costa Rica. You didn't really know the other 8 people that are in your Leadership 360 group. And how would you describe, first of all, the level of connection that you feel with those other 8 people and the 3 coaches, including myself at this point?
On a scale of 1 to 10, I would say it's up towards 8 or 9. I mean, it was an incredible amount of connectedness and sharing and transparency in a short period of time.
And was there anything that you had to do to create that connection?
Yeah, I guess I had to be present, right? I had to allow myself the gift of time to detach from email and phone, but just be present and listen and be vulnerable enough to connect and to share.
And was there anything strategically that you sensed that they were doing to try to get you to connect with them?
No.
Okay. So my point in bringing that up is that we don't need to make this so hard, but what we do need to do, and I'm really glad that you isolated presence, is we need to slow down a little bit. Okay. You take a breath and really take an extra 5 minutes when we're meeting with a real estate agent or when we're talking to a client on the phone to just find our breath, get out of our head, preferably do stuff like we're doing right now over video conference and really connect with the person. I'll tell you, there's a loan originator that's not in Leadership 360, but is being coached by Julie Wykes in our Performance Accelerator program. And he's doing something really brilliant with Zoom. And I don't know why everybody wouldn't do this. When he presents the total cost analysis to the client on the second phone call, he does it on Zoom, just like Josh was doing it right now, and he shares his screen. Talk about creating separation. I mean, you've got to have that call anyway. The only reason you shouldn't do it that way would be if you're in transit and you're driving your vehicle. But if you're in your office, I want you to start thinking, do I pick up the phone and call the person? Or do I make it a part of my presentation process to video conference with that person so they can see me and I can look into the camera like I'm looking right now, and you guys can all see that I'm looking directly into the lens, okay, and connect with them and find out a little bit more about them and do my presentation and then have a few laughs with that person. When you're talking about separating yourself from, competitive forces out there that aren't doing this, you're giving yourself a significant edge. What are your thoughts on that, Josh?
I think you're spot on. I mean, we talk to our group a lot about if you can connect, if you can teach, and you can laugh with a client in the first call, your conversion ratio is probably 80 or 90%. And above and beyond your conversion ratio, if you can check those 3 boxes in the initial call, what are the chances that transaction is going to go shockingly well? It is. That you've started a relationship where if there's a problem, they're going to feel comfortable bringing it up to you. They're not going to nitpick every little thing because they've started to connect with you. So if you can infuse humor, and if you can infuse education, and you can infuse, as you said, I just kind of like this guy, that, or this gal, and you feel that is the way that we beat the fintech lenders. And if we can't get good at that, then it's going to be really hard or impossible to win.
And I want to compliment you on something because I've watched a fair enough amount of your videos and now I'm on this video conference with you. Another thing that's really important is that you bring good energy to a conversation like that. I mean, everybody that's watching this can feel Josh's energy. He's not phoning this in. I mean, he's happy to be here on this video conference, and you need to show up that way too. So people can feel your energy and they're attracted to it. Now, check this out. The humor part is super important that Josh is talking about. I mean, one of the things that I've isolated is that when, laughter is, I think, a highly underrated emotion, first of all. I mean, I think that we don't have enough of it in our life. I'm really lucky in the construct of my profession to have a lot of laughs with my clients. I mean, we have a good time together. And it's through that I started to realize wow, I've been really missing this from my life up until 6 or 7 years ago when I started doing L360. And the laughs don't come from our head. Okay. Laughter comes from your heart. Laughter is not a premeditated experience. Okay. When you're laughing, you're present. And when you're laughing, you're connected with the other people that you're laughing with. Okay. So when you ask this person in that first phone call to swap friend requests on Facebook, one of the things that you should also be doing is looking for photos and things like that could evoke a humorous conversation in the next call when you do present to them the total cost analysis. And Josh is isolating something very important here. I think that it's really, really important that you're a debt strategist. I think it's really, really important that you're well scripted. I think it's critical that you're using the mortgage coach in a strategic way. And we've shared with you some ways to do that in the last 30 minutes. Okay. But if you're just leaving it there, you're leaving yourself exposed. And the reason that you're leaving yourself exposed is because people do business with people that they like. Mm-hmm. And there's a chance that you could lose out to somebody else who's creating and cultivating a deeper connection with that client who's comparing them to you if you're just simply presenting numbers. So you need to be well-rounded in that regard. You need to not only position yourself as being an authority and somebody that they can trust and somebody who's a debt advisor and a specialist, but you also need to have them say, I really like that guy or that gal. You know, like we had a laugh together. We have something in common with each other, which is why I want you to be using social media in that way. You know, when they see, well, I'll use Ryan Grant as an example. Some of you probably know who he is, and Josh definitely knows who he is very well. I've pointed out to Ryan on so many occasions. Ryan's one of the top originators in the country with Fairway. He works at the same company as Josh, and he's a great guy and a really brilliant guy. But I've pointed out to him, and he had a post this morning of a photo of him and his wife dressed up really nice. And I noticed in 5 hours, he had 79 likes, which tops his traditional posts. And this is on Instagram, by about 3-1, because his traditional posts on Instagram are like him in his suit at the office, or this is our, employee of the month. There's not as much connection in that. But when he posts things of like him and his 2 little daughters in really cute dresses, or when they're as a family at the beach, there's way more likes. Pay attention to your likes. Those likes are telling you that people are connecting more with you. They're finding kinship. They're finding a common denominator in their life with what you've got going on in your life. And that's when we start to transition the experience in the relationship to a friendship. And the loan officer with the most friends wins. I mean, it's always been that way. It will always be that way. Those that own the relationships and that have the most connections are the ones that are most successful.
Yeah, and I would just add to that's probably a skill we didn't have to have over the last few years. I mean, we had refinances feeding us. We had a frenzy purchase market feeding us. And as both those things start to slow down, we need to reassess our value proposition and really substantiate what makes us different from the fintech lender. So I think that is a really good point and something that I'm continuing to work on, because I'm just not all that funny, but I have to work on that and be a little more present for that.
I don't know that I agree with that. I mean, in all seriousness, I mean, you said some funny stuff in Costa Rica, and you've had some funny text to our text group. So I think you're shortchanging yourself an awful lot there. But, it doesn't, if funny isn't your brand, okay, then it isn't your brand. But you have something about you, each and every one of you, that makes you special. I mean, all you need to think about, here's a simple exercise. If you really don't know what that is, go to the 10 people in your life that love you the most and say, what is it that you love about me? What is it about me that attracted you to me in the first place? Some people are going to hear, well, you're present. You're a good listener. You're sincere. You care a lot. Whatever it is, some are going to say, you're funny. I mean, whatever it is that is your gift, use it to connect with people. And I'll go one more step, that I think never gets looked at, which is, what about the spouse? We always, or a lot of people, most people miss on that one. And I think that that's a critical mistake. Oftentimes the person that's leading the transaction on the consumer end is not the better referrer. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes the person that's leading the conversation on the transaction end is the most, cerebral, most geared towards finance, but not necessarily the most connected in their social circle.
Interesting.
They are busy typically, whether it be the man or the woman. They're usually, they have a profession. It's not very often that you have the at-home parent calling you up to say, hey, I want to talk to you about doing my loan, right? Sure. It's probably 9 times out of 10, if not more, that it's the person who has a career. Okay. So they've got their social circle at work, but they're also very busy. But there's fully 50% of this equation that's being untapped on the other side. And how are you connecting with that person? Simply even just taking out a personal handwritten note card and writing a note to the spouse after you're done moving forward with the paperwork and saying, hey, I realize that we haven't had a chance to chat yet. And I didn't want you to feel ignored by me or have you think that I'm not interested in helping you in any way with any of the questions that you have. Please don't hesitate to give me a call. It would be really my pleasure to share with you anything that it is that you need to know. Or you could go a step further and do what Josh is doing. I mean, you could just record a video to the person and send it to them and say, hey, my name's Tim Braheem and I've been speaking with your wife and, we're moving forward with your loan, but I know that this is also a very important time for you as well. And you're at home and you're taking care of the children. I just want you to know that I'm here for you. If you have any questions, feel free to give me a call at any time. Be happy to sit down with you, answer anything that I can for you about school districts, anything that you might, my staff might be able to help you out with. Speak to what's important to that person as well, because guess what? That person's involved typically in the PTA or the Little League or whatever various social circles they're in, and they can be good referrers too. And you know that they can be good referrers, and here's why. Because you've lost deals to those people before. You've had times where you had a deal and then the spouse stole it away from you because they knew somebody from one of their friends, and then all of a sudden you had competition. Don't put yourself in that spot to where you're vulnerable.
Awesome. Great point.
What else? Let's talk about realtors.
Hey guys,
yeah,
guys. By the way, I jumped in. I don't know how long, if you guys know I was here, but awesome conversation. What a gift to have you two in the mortgage coach community. Super grateful, guys.
Hey, thanks for being here. We're glad that you're over your hangover.
is that the story you've been telling everybody?
That's what we told everybody. You had a late night last night, and you were doing a presentation this morning. So
we told him that on average, Advil takes about 30 minutes to kick in, so he should be here right about the 30-minute mark.
Exactly.
No, I got off stage late, but I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I was on stage. But anyways, thanks guys. So it's been an awesome conversation. I mean, there's no doubt people had asked me a question in 2020, what do you predict? Like what's going to be some of the trends and the differentiations? And one of the things that I had said, on stage just a few minutes ago is that everybody will have a digital mortgage, but, like I've said always, I don't think loan officers are going to get taken out by technology, but I think loan officers that use technology will absolutely crush those that don't. And so we'll be at a time where you're going to have big lenders, call it, the technology companies doing mortgages. You're going to have Josh Mettles of the world that are great leaders. They built personal brands. And, the digital mortgage, the actual transaction will just be much faster. So personal brand and relationship is just essential to your future. So Tim, let's go down that transition, as you said, and let's start talking about partners and realtors and, how do we connect? And especially in a land like now, I mean, Keller Williams has a mortgage company. Zillow's got a mortgage company. Pretty much every real estate company in the country is going to have a mortgage company. So what's your advice to the mortgage coach community under that, marketplace?
Well, it's interesting because I've been continuing to explore this. We did that interview 6-7 months ago, and I've even further teased this apart. And I asked Josh a question a little bit earlier about the level of connection that he felt with the other 8 people in Costa Rica on retreat and whether or not they had a strategy to connect with him. And he acknowledged no, that they didn't. And I'm really getting clearer and clearer, Dave, that it's about not having a strategy at all. It's about showing up as you without. So here's the trap. The trap. And Josh, that book that when we had our coaching call the other day, that book I told you to read, Being Supernatural, there's something in there that's so powerful that plays into this when it comes to the exchange of energy between people. So when you read that book, you're going to definitely dig it and tap into what I'm talking about here. The thing is that people can feel, whether they're conscious of it or not, Dave, they can feel if you have an agenda. Okay. And that's the part that's the trap that I think we all need to be careful about is, can we enter the relationship with a referral partner, realtor, accountant, financial planner, insurance agent, divorce attorney, it doesn't matter who it is, small banker in your local community. Can we enter that appointment with only the intention of connection? Can we enter that appointment without falling prey to the trap of having an agenda of wanting something. Because as I've said before, and I'll say it again, no one reciprocates with takers. Okay. So if you're looking for something, it's almost like a double bind when you think about it. If you're looking for something, then you won't get it. And if you do get it, it'll be temporary. And if you're not looking for something other than just connection and to serve and to help people, the rest is going to take care of itself. And there is plenty of social proof out there to this degree. Mike Watson and Greg Kingsbury are my two favorite guys to always bring up. You know, two guys that, you know, are in our L360 family that do between 30 and 40 loans a month. They do it like clockwork. They're doing it in today's market. They were doing it in last year's market. And they're doing it because they have between 12 and 15 extremely loyal referral partner relationships. Like loyal to a degree that everybody would be salivating if they heard what these people say about them. They will say things like, here's Greg's business card. I want you to use him. If you use somebody else, I'm not responsible for the outcome. Now, that's a strong referral from a realtor, okay? I mean, that's putting fear into the person. If they don't use him, that something could go wrong. I mean, you couldn't script it any better than that. But when you assess and analyze why Watson and Kingsbury get referred so passionately and so loyally, you need not go any further than looking at the origin of the relationship itself. The origin of the relationship was built not on a foundation of strategy, not on a foundation of trickery, not on a foundation of having an agenda that you tried to convince somebody to buy into, but solely on the foundation of, I want to see what this person needs and if I can help them. To the degree that neither of the two of them even talk about themselves or business in the first two appointments. That's their rule. The first two appointments are solely to ask questions and understand what the other person needs and to get to know them and to keep the appointment short, 20, 30 minutes, which is smart because you want to leave people wanting more. Now, when you're going into it and you have an agenda and your hope is that I'm going to get a commitment out of this person, then you're going to have, first of all, a lot of strategy. They're going to be able to feel your strategy. They're going to, it's no different than dating, right? Like if somebody shows up to the first date and they're acting desperate, it's a turnoff. Okay. And what ultimately ends up happening, whether people know it or not, is their guard comes up, right? Because they don't feel like this is an authentic experience. Josh referenced the fact, Dave, that, it was really easy for him to connect with those other 8 people in the L360 group that he's in. I think that it's really easy because there was no reason for you, Josh, to have your wall up, right?
Exactly right.
I mean, your wall was down the whole time because nobody had an agenda. It's no different than we all have relationships like this in our life. Dave, when you met Kelly, you guys have been together for a long, long time. I'm sure that there was a lot of authenticity to the connection. That's why it's lasted as long as it's lasted in your marriage. The thing is that every relationship that we have in our life that's meaningful just started organically by 2 people getting to know each other and nobody really wanting anything from the other person other than to just have connection and to have a good time. So that's at the core of what I'm really starting to teach now a lot is, not only how to show up, but if you're having a difficult time showing up that way, why? What pressures are you putting on yourself? What story are you telling yourself? If you're going into the appointment going, man, I really need more business, how are you going to be showing up energetically to that appointment? And what's the other person going to feel? And is their guard going to stay down and are they going to remain open? Or are they going to feel like, whoa, I'm being sold here and this feels a little bit icky? And I mean, so that's a starter. And so it's the trick, Dave, is that when most people get into this business, they get spoiled because the relationships that you cultivate when you first get into this business are generally in a refi, market. So it's quick and dirty, like Josh was saying earlier. It's like we're just trying to move loans through the pipeline, having quick conversations. How quickly can I get off the phone with this person, get on the phone with another person? Yeah. Okay, but this is a different game here. This is about a long-term relationship that you're looking for that has legs to it and that has a reward to it that frankly is so much more substantial than a transactional experience. I mean, if, Josh, like just off the top of your head, who's your top referral partner?
Jake Breen.
How long have you been with Jake?
10 years.
How much money do you think you've made from Jake, if you could calculate it real quick in the last 10 years?
I don't know, man. A good amount.
Yeah, a lot, like hundreds of thousands of dollars probably, right?
Hundreds of thousands of dollars.
That's how valuable it can be. Are you willing to put in the time, folks?
Well, and can I just add into that, because I was actually thinking of that relationship as you were talking, and Jake is someone that we work out together, we trail run together, our kids hang out together, we life plan together. We really do have a connection that transcends mortgage. We really want each other to win as human beings. Like, I really want him to be successful, and he really wants me to be successful. We know we come from the right place. Neither of us come into the relationship thinking, man, I really want to go trail running with Jake because I bet you I'm going to get a deal, right? We come into these meetings together thinking, man, I wonder if there's something I can share with Jake, or I wonder if I can get some feedback on this thing that I'm thinking about, and he can help me develop my thoughts more. And it is a real relationship. And I'll just add one last thing. Our number one realtor in our office, Drake Blaybaum, similar strategy. He's got 5 or 6 or 7 realtors that are ski buddies. They come over to his pool. They barbecue with his kids. They are pals, and the business it's like a never-ending stream of business because they're not referral partners, man. They're like brothers and sisters. You're in it for them to win as much as you're in it, or even maybe you're in it more for them to win than you're in it for you to win out of the relationship.
So I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. I've been saying this for 20 years, okay? The loan officer with the most friends wins. You just perfectly articulated it. This isn't that complicated. Journal on that. Everybody take the time, go block out an hour and put that phrase in your journal. The loan officer with the most friends wins. And then ask yourself the question, how do I develop friendships? How have I developed friendships historically in my life? And how can I do that in my business? Because guess what? What Josh is describing, which was the same thing that I experienced, is actually way more fun because he actually works with people that he likes.
Absolutely.
It's not like those people don't pick up the phone and call him and yell at him or demand his time on a Sunday night when he's with his kids. There's a mutual respect there because there's a true relationship in place. And relationships are built based upon common denominators. So, with Mike and Greg, the 2 gentlemen that I mentioned earlier, that's one of the things that they're seeking by not selling themselves in that first call and by just chatting with the person and asking them a lot of open-ended questions about themselves, trying to understand what's important to them in their life, what's their family structure, what are their hobbies, et cetera, to find commonality that you can then build upon. Okay. It's no different than when you go to a social setting and you're meeting people and then you find somebody who has the same favorite sports team as you, or, it went to the same high school as you, or whatever the case may be. That becomes the seedling to build from. But the question becomes, once again, are you willing to take the time? Are you willing to put in the time? Because I'm not going to create a panacea for you here. This doesn't happen overnight. The relationships that happen overnight don't last. They're transactional by nature. You'll only be as good as your last deal that you did for them, and then they're going to blow you off for somebody else. And that kind of is obvious when you think about it because they blew somebody else off to go with you. So how loyal are they? Right?
Guys, let me jump in here real quick. I know we're going to run out of time in a minute here.
And I got to plug
Tim,
my laptop before it dies, so give me 1 sec to.
Yeah, well, wait. Yeah, no worries, man. Hey, I want to make sure people know about the referral partner success system that you have before we wrap this up. Because I know, 1, you have it, so you could describe it real quick. And then 2, I know you're doing something special for the mortgage coach community, which I am super grateful for. So what is the success, the referral partner success platform?
Well, thank you, Dave. About a year ago, I started to play with this idea of connection and deeper relationships and how that was going to be the kind of the linchpin for success going forward. And which should be a part of everyone's strategy and business plan. And my partner, Scott Bertone, and I, who's also an executive coach for our company, we just decided to put together the first product that I've had in over 20 years since the Loan Toolbox days. And it's a one-time pay thing. It's not a subscription product like Loan Toolbox was. But there are over 3 hours of segmented video content that breaks down how to pursue relationships and connection with realtors, accountants, financial planners, and insurance agents. It also goes into great depth on the subject matter of how to do an annual mortgage planning review and connect more deeply with your clients. So if you're looking for something that's very affordable, it normally goes for $799. Dave, I think you have the price. I don't have it here in front of me as to what the discount is that you and Scott worked out. You had asked if we could do something special for your community, and we were glad to do so. If you don't mind reading that off, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah,
but
no problem, guys. Well, real quick, guys. So it's normally over 700, or actually 900, and I think you guys are bringing it down to 674. Yes, so by the way, Mortgage Coach Community, if you're watching this video, there'll be a link down below for it. You have to click on the link to get the discount, and I'll also put it in our Facebook group. So it is really affordable. How long did you say it was again? How many hours?
It was over 3 hours of recorded video, but there's also, all of the scripts that you heard today and many, many more are in writing for you so you can practice them and use them. There's also assessments so you can be assured that we want to make sure that you're really taking in the content and really learning from it. So it's a complete system. And the best part about it is that you've got a free trial for it. So, test it out, use it for 7 days. If you don't like it, just ask for a refund. We'll give you your money back. We haven't had any refunds. So everybody's really enjoying it. The people that have currently purchased it. And then also you have access to a community on Facebook of all the people that are using this product. And we extended that from 3 months to 6 months that you have access to communicating with people, sharing successes, asking questions. We as coaches are in there all the time, helping you guys out on that too. It's kind of a no-brainer for that price. I mean, it's the cost of a quarter of a deal. And if you get one relationship, as Josh just described, it'll pay, multiples on that for sure. Josh, you took in some of the content. I don't know if you have anything you'd want to share. I mean, you watched it as a part of your homework for Costa Rica.
Yeah, I took in all the content, and it's awesome stuff. I mean, what continues to surprise me is how connected you are into what's happening today and relevant with today's originator. And I think with the shift that we're going through right now, it is as timely and as spot on, just right on the dial. Information elaborating on what we spoke about today, but very valuable content. You can use it right away.
Awesome. Yeah. Hopefully any of you that want to have access to it will find great benefit from it, and it would be our pleasure to help you in any way we can.
Yeah. And like I said, everybody, if you're watching this video, hopefully you got value. Give it a like if you like the video. Share it with your friends. I recommend you schedule a sales meeting around it and go deep with Tim. Click on the link down below, either in the YouTube channel or go to our Facebook group and sign up today. Hey guys, I am super grateful for having both of you on here. Josh, thank you for jumping in last minute to help me and lead this call.
Anytime, brother.
Hugely appreciate that. And I'm sure it was a better call without me, man. Guys, I'm not even gonna give that any justice. So hey guys, take care. Tune in every Tuesday, 9 o'clock Pacific. Every Friday, 9 o'clock Pacific. Take care, gents.
Bye, everybody.
Calls a wrap.